Today, the world is struggling to breathe under a massive mountain of debt. The U.S. owes over $38 trillion. The EU carries $14 trillion. And Japan is approaching $9 trillion. From oil-rich nations to export giants like China, everyone is drowning in debt. This leads us to one inevitable question. If everyone is in debt, who exactly is the creditor? The answer is both simple and unsettling. The world doesn't owe money to an outsider. The world owes it to itself. Debt is no longer just a burden. It is the very invisible scaffolding that holds the modern world together. This massive arrangement was born in 1694 during England's endless wars with France. When the king ran out of money, he turned to merchants with an offer. "Lend me gold now, and in exchange, I promise you a permanent stream of interest payments backed by my future taxes." This was the birth of the government bond. Debt was no longer a sign of failure. It became a symbol of credibility and power. Empires stopped invading lands just for gold and started issuing bonds to extract interest. The battlefield shifted to the bank balance sheet. So, who do we actually owe this money to? Take the U.S. as an example. Most of that $38 trillion is owed to Americans themselves, to their pension funds, local banks, and individual citizens. Contrary to popular belief, China's share is only about 2% of the total. In reality, it's a global game of hot potato. Japan lends to the U.S. funds Europe through the IMF. Europe opens credit lines to developing nations, and those nations invest their cash back into Western bonds for safety. Everyone holds someone else's IOU. The only rule of the game is, no one can demand their money back at the same time. If one person stands up, the whole house of cards collapses. The high priests of this system are the central banks. They don't just manage money, they create it out of thin air by purchasing government bonds. Today, there is no such thing as debt-free money. Every banknote in your pocket is essentially someone else's debt instrument. This entire order is policed by the markets. Hedge funds and giant institutional investors are the true judges of which nations survive. If the market loses confidence in a country, its economy, interest rates, and currency can be obliterated overnight. The ultimate truth is this: these debts were never designed to be paid off. Governments don't plan to close their debts. They plan to roll them over, refinance. When an old debt is due, they simply issue a new bond to cover it. If all global debt were paid off today, the world economy would collapse in seconds. Bank collateral would vanish, the money supply would dry up, and the heartbeat of capitalism would stop. Politicians promising to end the national debt are selling an illusion. The real goal is to keep the world believing that the debt could be repaid. While saying we owe it to ourselves sounds innocent, there is a dark side. The massive interest on this debt is paid by ordinary citizens through their taxes, while the profit flows upward to the top 1% and the giant institutions holding the bonds. In essence, debt is the greatest wealth transfer machine the world has ever seen. Debt was once a form of bondage. Today, it is the global balance. But remember, this balance relies entirely on trust, and if that trust ever wavers, we will all be reminded of what debt truly is, a promise that cannot be kept forever.